Hey everyone, welcome to Group Text. When she was just a kid, Jennifer Love Hewitt sang, danced, and acted her way into our hearts on the Disney Channel's hit show, Kids Incorporated. Deep breath, because here we go. This led to greater stardom with hit series like Party of Five, Criminal Minds, 911, The Client List, and of course, The Ghost Whisperer, in addition to major roles in Can't Hardly Wait and the horror blockbuster I Know What You Did Last Summer and its sequel. Jennifer is back with a new Christmas romantic comedy called The Holiday Junkie, which premieres December 14th on Lifetime. Okay, another big deep breath, which she directed, co-wrote, and stars in, as well as her new book entitled Inheriting Magic, which is out December 10th, in which she writes about the death of her mother and the valuable lessons she learned from her. Okay, I'm exhausted. Jennifer, welcome to Group Text.
That is a lot. That is a lot.
I mean, I know I always do. When people start reading everything, you're like, wow, maybe I'm not a total loser. You know what I mean?
I have been busy. I have been definitely busy.
Okay, let's talk about the book first.
Okay.
It's wonderful. And
thank you.
A lot of it stems, which I understand, with the sadness you felt after your mother's death. But it's a very hopeful and inspirational book. First of all, what made you decide to want to write it, and how soon after her death did you begin to write it?
So I actually didn't start writing it until 2 years ago. A year and a half ago. So about 11 years after her passing. I just didn't really know until then what to say. It took me a long time to sort of get there. And quickly after she passed, I got married, started having children. So a lot has happened. And then the grief journey really took me a long time. I think out of grief, I thought that grief was just going to be this moment or this event. And then in grief, I realized it just never stops and it just sort of keeps going. And so I needed some time, I think, to sort of find what I wanted to say about her. And then I just sort of started writing pages more for healing than anything else. And they very quickly turned into this book.
I found, especially for me, and still do, grief is very evolving.
It is, yes.
And I think people don't expect that. Mm-hmm. And when you still say, I have grief, people want to automatically say, oh, well, enough already. But especially if you were close with a parent like you were with your mom and I was with my mom, it's constantly changing.
Yes.
And how do you explain where you are to people? Like for me, I get frustrated because it's more, oh my God, who else is going to find this funny?
Right.
You know, that kind of thing is where I'm at. Where are you at?
I think I'm sort of there also. It's like, especially with my kids, it's frustrating to me that she isn't meeting them. Like that she is, right. That she can't see how much she's in each one of them in these sort of extraordinary ways. It makes me crazy that she's not here to see how much she's being celebrated right now with this movie and this book. Like my mom was fabulous and she would love all of this attention on her. So I think, there's like frustration in that. Definitely around the holidays, it's harder because she was a holiday lover and always made it so magical. And so, I think I feel closer to her now maybe than I have in years past from writing the book and doing the movie and sort of being able to talk about her a lot and sort of celebrate her in this way. But yeah, it's frustrating when it's your mom, that more than anyone. It's just like they should be here for these things or for these moments or for that joke or whatever it is, and it's annoying. But they're not.
Yeah, I'm at 10 years, you're at 11 years. We're very much in the same point. And it's interesting what you bring up about your kids because yours are still very young.
Yes.
Mine is just literally a week ago turned 24. Wow. So and my mom passed when he literally like he had just turned 13. Mm. And all through the teenage years and even as an adult now, he does things that make me crazy. And I realize, oh my God, I did those things to my parents. And now I know how shitty it feels.
Yes.
Have you heard your mom coming out of your mouth and especially things that you hated she said?
Oh my gosh, I'm 100% my mother. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrifying. It's terrifying and wonderful all at the same time. And yeah, I just had that moment a couple of days ago where I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is what she was dealing with," or like this is what she was feeling or going through, and I had truly like no idea. And I do think all the time that she must be like looking down on me, just laughing
Oh,
hysterically at all that I am experiencing and going through, and just being like, "Now it's your turn."
yeah.
Um, so that brings me joy.
No, it does. But just all I'm gonna say is, you know, you can always find me when you get into the teenage years because that's
Thank
all.
you. I will need you, so I will
It is
find you
a
immediately.
whole lot of
Yeah.
weird because you're
Hmm.
just like, oh crap, I did all this. Fuck, you know what I mean? One time, my son looked at me and said, "Oh my God, you are so much worse than I ever was." I said, "Well, we didn't have technology.
Yeah.
I
The technology's scary, isn't it?
It's very scary, but
It's
it
scary.
also means you can track them.
Yeah.
I mean, we could lie about where we were.
Yeah.
You know,
True.
they can't do that. But I want to go back to the book because it's not really a straightforward memoir. There are personal stories, there's advice, there are recipes. I mean, it seems like there's a lot more than one book there. How did you decide? First of all, how did you pitch it that I'm going to put this sort of potpourri together?
Yeah.
And how did you decide what to use and what not to use?
I tried to, when I sat down with it all, I at first I just sort of pitched it as a book about my mom because
Right.
that's really what it was at that stage. And they were like, "Okay, and where does that go?" And I was like, "I think it goes into how I became this version of myself and sort of found myself really in grief as the holiday junkie." And so once I sort of put that together, I was like, "Well, I want to give a little bit about her in the beginning and who she was to me and how she inspired me and how she was magical, and then kind of move that into how I learned to make magic and how I'd inherited that, and that helped me with my children and starting my family, and then how that kind of got me to the happiest place that I've been in a really long time, which is now as this sort of like crazy holiday lover who, you know, is in a Christmas movie and writes books and, you know, does all the things with her kids. So it just sort of, it kind of found its natural way. Um, but I think I could have done a million different versions of the book if I'm being honest. And I think a lot of people were like, "Well, why aren't you telling us more about Hollywood?" And I was like, "Cause yeah, why? Like this is who, you know, it was my first opportunity to really write about who I am.
Hmm.
And who I am is a lot more than that. And so I just wanted to sort of tell them the stuff that maybe they didn't know or wouldn't expect."
Well, and why you are who you are.
Yeah.
And I found the title fascinating, Inheriting Magic. And I mean, I understand when you write about that it's the magic created by your mom around different events, but explain to people what that actually is in a practical sense, because it's something that I totally get.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you had a magical mom.
Yep.
And I had a magical mom. And if you don't have a magical mom, it's maybe hard to understand. But I think that so the very first thought that I had, like 72 hours, 48 hours after she passed, was, "Oh my gosh, all the magic I've ever known is gone." Because she was the magic. Like she was like your mother. Like she walked into a room and people wanted to know her, they wanted to be around her. She was a light, she was big, she was, you know, all of these
Hmm.
fantastic things that were captivating as a child to watch and be around and be loved by. And you know, she loved with her heart wide open and deep and big, and you know, all of those things. And so when that's taken from you, you're like, this is going to be a culture shock for my whole system. And what do I do with that? And in that first Christmas, sort of quickly after her passing, becoming a mom for the first time, I was sort of hit with this like whole other grief of, "Oh my gosh, she's never going to walk through the door and get to meet my child. Like, I'm never going to have that experience. She wasn't here for this. She didn't get to see me rock this birth and, you know that I'm going to be a mom and I'm going to be crazy and, you know all the things that she knew." And all of that. And so I really had to make a choice that Christmas of whether I was going to sit in my grief or whether I was going to get up and, like my mom would say, put my big girl pants on and like make magic for my family. And so I did. I really found a way, even in my pain that Christmas, to sort of make things magical, to put up the lights, to put up the tree, to, entertain our friends and create joy and dance with our baby and snuggle together and watch movies and, do all the things that create that sort of like, I don't know, that like good feeling inside. And through that, I noticed my husband felt that magic and our baby was happy and our friends wanted to be around. And it started to sort of just like create this thing for us. And then the magic, which I sort of explained in the book, the magic really became more of an intention for me.
Yeah.
And it became about kind of finding my version of that. And sometimes I do things exactly like my mother, and sometimes I just do them my way. But it all is inspired by her and it was inherited by her. And so that's kind of where the book title came from.
Because I know for me, and it seems a lot for you too, it was also, for lack of a way to explain, tradition based.
Yes.
This is what we do, and this is the big thing, and this is why everybody comes. And it sort of self-perpetuates.
Yes.
Because I have found that I now do that. And also with my mom, it was very experience-based. Trips were very...
Creating an experience.
Creating an experience, which back then, and when you were growing, definitely when I was growing up, that wasn't a trendy thing. Now everybody's doing experiences.
Right.
Which ones have you, like, I know I've held on to our Thanksgiving, which is this huge Thanksgiving. We always did it at my mom. It was always over the top. It was dressy. It was all the family silver and china. And I now do that. You know, like everyone now comes to me rather. And what was fascinating was the first time I didn't put something out that we'd always had out, I just didn't put it on the table. My son said, "Where is it?"
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Which ones have you really held on to? That, like, I know when I see our certain set of dishes that were my grandmother's, I intrinsically know, oh, it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I think for us, it's Christmas. I'm a big, like, go big or go home Christmas person. And my kids know that it's happening and that the house is like, going to be joy. I think also, my mom was like a not the expected experience. So like a magical dinner or just doing something random for my kids, like unexpected on a weekday and playing hooky and like going and doing something fun and magical and special. So I try to do those things and create experiences for them that make life feel, I don't know, extra. I am definitely extra. My mother was extra, and I wear my extra with pride for sure.
Yeah, you talk about playing hooky. Just wait till they do it without your permission.
Oh goodness. Well, as long as they take me along for something fun, then I'm okay with that. But if they don't, then I'll be sad.
Just know, in a strange way, you dodged a bullet because because basically they believe that they have free reign, and you're like, oh, can you can you pick them up at school? And they're gone for 4 hours. My mom once picked up Cooper, and he comes home and he won't eat dinner, and he's just being a little bit of a beast, as they can be. And I'm like, she's like, oh, we stopped for a snack. I said, what? She goes, oh, pizza and ice cream. I'm like, that is not a snack. That is dinner.
I love that. I do wish my kids had that, though. That would be so fun for them.
She then looked me in the eye and said, you've really got to be better about him eating like more balanced and healthy and vegetables. Oh, really? Thank you. So appreciative. So, in all the sad and all the missing, there can be a few rays of sunshine. Do you feel your mom day to day?
Not day to day, but I do feel her. And I will say I feel her more now than I did in the beginning.
Why?
It took a long time. I think, it's interesting. I just told someone else this, but I especially, it's kind of funny to say, but because I played the Ghost Whisperer, I don't know. I thought like when she passed, I'd be like, oh, I'd get the thing, like the blender would turn on or the chair would move or like, something would happen that she would be there. And I really didn't feel her at all in the beginning. pissed me off a lot. I was like, why is she not coming to me? You know, and then I did feel her very distinctly one day. And I don't remember now, I don't even remember exactly what it was, but I did feel her. And I said that to my husband, and he was like, don't you think she's just waited for you to maybe emotionally be ready? And I was like, oh, well, you're right. Like, probably before, it would have set me back in grief quite a bit to like know that she was there, but I couldn't see her. You know what I mean? And so I think it took a long time. But I do feel her now more than ever. And my kids really keep her very alive for us. We always see my mom and hummingbirds, and my kids will come home and they'll be like, I saw 5 hummingbirds today at school. Or when I got hurt earlier, I looked up and I saw a hummingbird, and I know Mimi was with me. And so it's really sweet. Like they sort of keep her alive in that way too, which is lovely.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
I know people always say, do you hear your mom's voice? And I'm like, does anyone actually remember my mom's voice? It is not pretty. Oh, yes, I do get to hear it. It's usually critical.
I do hear my mom sometimes in my closet with fashion choices going,
like,
no.
Yeah.
No.
My mom's like, I was like, really? But I do want to pivot to the movie.
Yes.
Because God forbid you just act. It comes
I had
out
19 jobs.
Yes, I understand that, because why not try and control every aspect of everything
naturally?
Of course.
Yes.
Duh.
As you do.
Yeah. Because nobody will do it right.
Of course not.
It's obvious.
Right. You have to do it yourself.
It comes out December 14th on Lifetime. It's called The Holiday Junkie. Tell me what it's about.
So I play a holiday magic maker who is hired to create magical decor for families and then plan their itineraries. So I get this job and I show up, and instead the family is gone, and there is a house manager there that I was not expecting. He happens to be very handsome because it's a Christmas movie. He's also my real life husband. And my character has lost her mother, and is in her first Christmas grief without her. She meets this guy, and he sort of doesn't like Christmas, and very quickly realizes that he's also in grief, but a different kind of grief. He was left at the altar at Christmas. And they both are just kind of wanting to be alone on this Christmas. But obviously, as the movie goes on, because it's a Christmas movie, they realize that Christmas is better together.
Oh, so when did you actually start writing it?
So I came up with the idea for it around the same time that I started writing the book. So about 2 years ago, I pitched the movie to Lifetime as a grief Christmas movie, not really sure how that would land. But they were very open to it. And they kind of asked me why I wanted to do that. And I said, because the holidays are complicated. And I feel like people have a lot of pressure, if they do feel sad at Christmas, to hide that based on other people's joy. And I feel like we should leave space for everyone to just be where they are. And sometimes it's really joyful and sometimes it's not. I mean, I'm, very much, past losing my mom, and I still have good shower cries at Christmas time because I wish she was here for it. So I wanted to have a movie that sort of represented both of those feelings for people. And then I, reached out to my friend Anna to write it. She wrote the script. We both kind of like went back and forth on it. And then, it came together very quickly. We shot it in 15 days. My kids are in it. And it's sort of like a little love letter to my mom and our family. And yeah.
Okay. This wasn't your first time directing.
No, but it's my first time directing a feature.
It's first time directing because you had directed quite a bit of TV.
Yes.
But you guys were single camera when you were directing. So it's not that dissimilar back from when they were multi-camera.
Right. So, yeah. No, so it was a lot.
Well, that's what I was going to say was, first of all, how did you, I have a lot of questions. How did you decide you wanted to direct it? How did you explain to Lifetime that you planned on directing it? And how did you cast your husband? And then wait. And then how did you direct your husband without causing World War III?
Well,
There's a lot to unpack.
There is a lot. So the directing the husband part was great because I had to be bossy versus when I'm at home and I'm bossy and I get in trouble for it. So that part was easy. And he was just, you know, really like excited to kind of be in this movie and honor my mom, but also he's not like, he loves Christmas, but he's not a Christmas movie guy or like, you know, watches 40 of them a year like I do. So he was really open to like, look, I don't know what these Christmas movie guys do. So like direct me, tell me, like, let's go. So he was very open, which made it really lovely. And I was like, okay, the Christmas movie guy in this moment would be feeling like, you know, and he's like, okay, great, I'm going to do that. So it was really fun. And also I think 11 years into our marriage with 3 kids, it's not often that we are paid to just fall in love with each other all over again for 15 days. So it was really beautiful. And we left the movie going, oh my gosh, I really like you. Like, this is awesome. So that part of it was lovely. It was not my intent to direct the movie. I always thought that it would be handed off to somebody else. But as we got into the pre-production part of it, and the script part of it and all of that, it just became clear how much of the movie was my heart and how much of the movie was my story or in honor of her. And I just, at some point, didn't know how I would hand that off to someone else. I'm also a control freak. So, you know, I was like, I want to do it and make sure that if I have somebody to blame for it turning out terrible, it's me. So, or great, then it's me. So I just brought it up one day on the phone and they were like, yeah, do that. They were very receptive, very open to it, which meant a lot to me. They were extraordinarily supportive, Mar Vista and Lifetime, and we just did it. And then we like never really talked about the casting of the movie, like who would play opposite me, because we were so busy with everything else. And one of the people on the phone was like, why wouldn't it be your husband? Like, you guys act together, you know, you've acted together before, you love acting, like, why wouldn't it be? And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't it be my husband? I'm like, it's a great choice. Thanks for bringing him up. He's in the kitchen. And so it just
what if he had said no?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because he usually plays like very serious characters and kind of does darker stuff. So I guess I didn't know if he'd want to be in like a romantic Christmas movie. Like, I just didn't know. So I just went into the kitchen. I was like, well, hold on a second. And so I like went into the kitchen. I'm like, do you want to be in the, he's like, I'd love to be in the movie. I was waiting when you were going to ask. And I was like, oh, well, great. Okay. That's cast. So I'm doing great as a director. So I went back in, I called everybody. I was like, well, we have our leads. So that's good. And it was fine and smooth sailing from then. But yeah, it was a lot to put together.
Did he ever get actory on you?
He did not. He did not. He is slower, like getting to set than I am.
Really?
But I had to be there for directing and stuff like that. Yeah. But never like, you know, never actory. He was very kind.
But I love, he was slower getting to set. You're like, really? What are you doing?
I'm like, what are you doing right now? Where is he?
Yeah. How did the kids get involved? Because suddenly then, as much as you're trying to stay in the professional lane, you do end up on mommy duty.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, yeah, like I was obsessed with whether or not they were going to show up with clean hair for the hair and makeup people, or if they were going to like come from school and be dirty, you know, like all the things. If they were going to be well behaved, if they were eating too many snacks, if we were going to have a sugar rush in the middle of like the big Christmas moment. Yeah, there was all of that kind of balancing and everything. But we had kids in the movie. And so they were both like, well, we want to be in the movie. Daddy's going to be in the movie. You're in the movie. Why can't we be in the movie? And I was like, well, I don't know. Why can't you be in the movie? There was a lot of like just walking to my kitchen and casting people.
And it was, which is great.
Yeah.
Safe, but it's your older two, not your youngest.
Well, so this is the thing. So it was the older two. So they came and they did their part. Then they had to come back later and do another thing. And then the last day of filming, we did like this cookie swap scene where it takes place in the snow. And so we thought it would be fun to invite everyone's families because it was the wrap of the movie. And I had Santa Claus come to like yell rap. And so we thought it would be fun to bring. So the little guy was there and it like dawned on me that morning. I was like, oh my God, this kid is going to like be in his 20s and he's going to see the whole family Christmas movie and be like, you guys didn't put me in it. Like, dial the therapist and be like, why was I left out? Like, I was the only one.
What was wrong with me?
Yeah. I was like, we have to put Aiden in the movie. And they were like, okay. I was like, we need a work permit. So we like got a work permit. And he's like in the snow. He says nothing because he's 3, but he's like in the snow for maybe 10 seconds. But he's in there and he'll be able to see himself in there. And that therapist is not going to get called because I did a good job.
There you go. But that's exactly, that's therapy in the making.
Right? Can you imagine? Like it shows 40 times a year and everyone else in his family's in it but him.
Yeah.
Would have been terrible.
So, but how did you direct your kids? How did you, because as a director, no matter, and especially with working with someone, which again, I know about working with family members.
Yeah.
And I know there's times when you're being creative together, and then there's times when she would be the talent and I would be the producer, and we'd have to have some discussions. It is very hard.
Yeah.
When sometimes you do have to get serious.
Mm-hmm.
And having to get serious with your kids, which I'm sure you had to do because they are kids. How did you make sure that they knew that was just work mommy versus real mommy?
I think what we did is we had the sort of like serious conversations about it's work, it's a set, it's people's time, it's people's money, it's, it's a professional setting. We did all of that before we got to set. And then I was like, you're going to see mommy, saying over here to this person, like, you need to do this, or, and I don't like that shot. That's not me being critical. That's like me being a good director, and we like really tried to like walk them through all the steps of what they might see that day. And then, sort of prepped them for like showing up as professional as they could be in that moment. Another thing that we did is we brought them to the set early that day so that they could come and watch me direct a little bit, watch Brian and I both do this big like emotional scene that we had to do, which was so funny that our kids were there that day. But like, they were able to kind of get out all the like buzzy energy of being on set before they were on set. I definitely like hid the sugar off the craft service table. It was like, if you give them sugar, I will never forgive you. And so we like kept that away, and they were amazing. Like they hit their mark every time. They knew their lines every time. They were super professional. I mean, they were just amazing.
So I know for me as growing up, and I know for Cooper, you had like what I used to say, fake grandma, real grandma, fake mommy, real mommy.
Yeah.
And it's a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real balancing act. And the hardest thing for them, I think, was, or for him, and maybe yours, is really knowing the difference, especially when you see mommy and grandma on TV and then you see mommy and grandma at home.
Right.
It's very, and especially having the kids on set, like Cooper was on set with me all the time, all that kind of stuff. Again, feasting off of craft services, which was always bad. However, we'll make them resourcevil. Yes. I can make a week's worth of meals off a craft service table to this day. It makes you very, very agile in snack situations. How did you really, though, clear that line? Because it takes kids a minute to decompress. So if they're on set with you and then you get in the car to go home, how did you help them make that transition? Because it's hard even as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, it is a balancing act. And I think that, before doing the movie, they go to work with me a lot on 911. Mm-hmm. And my character on 911 is always going through something crazy. They happen to love that show. So they like, they run around a lot and they hang out with Transpo and they throw baseballs and they, eat way too much, and they love the trailer and they get fake tattoos in the hair and makeup department, prosthetics and all that stuff. So they have, they have a blast and they do that stuff, but we do have a lot. I guess I just try to be honest with them about, like, especially at the end of a work day, I always, just sort of say to them, like, I just need 5 minutes to just, and like change back into mom mode, and so I just need to like put on music for a second or not be asked 45 different questions in the span of like 30 seconds. And they're really good about it. They understand. And I try to give them that space too. I feel like the at school with their friends kid and then the like homework kid are also two different, people. So I think that, we try to create a lot of space in our home for everybody to kind of be that way, and to sort of find their way back to themselves a little bit after, those transitions of becoming our other people out in the world that we have to be. But they're pretty good. They sort of just, I don't know, they've just always sort of understood it.
Mm-hmm.
I think because I've always just been that person,
Right. Well,
you
just
know?
sometimes though, you'll get calls from other parents going, "Did your child really do this?" Because they go to school and go, "So anyway, I was in the trailer and Harrison Ford came by." They're like, so that will happen. Okay, holiday movie questions.
Oh gosh, okay.
This one's the most important and very divisive amongst people. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie or an action movie?
It's a Christmas action movie.
That is so threading the needle. It's got, but technically, is it one or the other?
I think it's a Christmas movie.
Right.
I do think it's a Christmas movie, and it's one of my favorites. And I love Die Hard. Who doesn't love Die Hard?
Everybody
But it's a Christmas movie. It's a Christmas party.
Yeah.
At the tower. It's Christmas time. It's a Christmas movie.
What's your favorite Christmas movie? What's your must watch?
White Christmas.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, I love that movie. And then The Holiday, of course.
Yeah, well, of course. What is your biggest Christmas tradition? Which one have you carried through?
We always have tamales on Christmas Eve because that was a big thing in my family. And now in like our little family that we've created, my husband makes what we call Brian's famous Christmas cocktail, and it's in the book. People can make it. We always have that right after we decorate our tree, and it's like the kids get Martinelli's. He makes us his drink, and we all sit and have like a cheers and kind of look at the lights and the ornaments, and it's just our family moment to sort of appreciate that little bit of magic that we all kind of created together.
So, we all think about what life was like back in the beginning.
Yeah.
With especially being in the public eye. How would it have, because you have been in the public eye forever, but when you came up, there was no TMZ and no social media. And how do you think the young ones deal with this pressure? I could not imagine what it was like. I mean, I remember back, my first TV job was on MTV, and in our contracts were a morality clause.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. I know. It's pretty extraordinary what they have to deal with. I don't know. I don't know how I would have dealt with the social media of it all at that age. I mean, it was hard enough dealing with just like, random articles that would, misquote you or, say things about you that maybe you didn't love. But then it was like gone, and it was, everything now like lasts forever, and 9 million people add their opinion on top of that. And, it's really interesting how different it is. It's funny too, like my daughter is obsessed with the 90s, and she's always like, "Oh my God, you were in the 90s. The 90s is so cool. The 90s is like totally back. It's slay." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I lived it and it was amazing." And she's like, "What was the difference?" And I was like, honestly, the 90s felt like so innocent compared to now.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't it? Like it just has this innocence about it in all facets, I feel like, compared to where we are today.
Because you've lived as a public figure, as a celebrity, and you still are. I mean, you've ridden the whole transition.
The whole time. Yeah.
I mean, do you ever think about, do you worry more now about how you present yourself in public and your kids than you did back then? I mean, and I'm older than you, but in the early 90s, I mean, we didn't worry about stumbling out of a club because if someone happened to be there, they happened to be there. But you've been in public through this whole transition. I mean, do you find yourself thinking differently now? I know I do.
Oh, I definitely think differently. And I definitely think differently as far as like what my kids are able to, obtain and like get from, what people might say or think about or, whatever. Like my daughter knew that somebody on Instagram said something about me aging, and they were like really awful, about like how I should just basically like shrivel up and die because I'm over 40. And she was like heartbroken for me. And I was like, I don't want her to have access to that. Like, I just don't,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't want her to be able to go on YouTube and like find these things and know these things. And, you know, she should be sort of protected from that. But it's the world that we live in, and it's out there. And it opened up an interesting conversation for us about, you know, aging and finding your confidence in all the different ways that you can, and, you know, and being honest about when you don't, and, you know, all of that stuff. So, yeah, I definitely worry more now. But I also think that it's interesting to have more voices in the conversation. Like, there's something about it that I like. There's something about it that I like, and there's something about it that I don't. It is an interesting time, but I'm really glad that I'm not a teenage actor in this time.
Could you even imagine?
No, that would be really tough.
You know,
and I give a lot of empathy to them.
I'm always terrified that my son or one of his friends is going to Google something and some old random picture of me is going to come up. And you're going to be like, oh God.
I know.
You know.
I know.
You know, yeah. And like, you know, you never want your son to come home from college and be like, oh my God, Mom, everyone in the fraternity's seen your tits. You know what I mean? That's like, that was like my
I have
biggest.
All the Maxim magazines and stuff like that that they're going to find at some point. I know.
Oh dear God, you're going to have to scrub the internet before they go. Oh, and teenage boys.
I know. I'm hoping the whole thing implodes before we get there.
Oh my God.
Just burn it all. Forget it.
I know. Are you going to be like, yes, Mommy? That's what Mommy used to look like. Mommy doesn't dress like that anymore.
I know.
Oh, so much to look forward to.
Yeah.
Inheriting Magic out December 10th. The Holiday Junkie on Lifetime December 14th. I'm so glad we had a few minutes to catch up.
Me too.
Like, I've always loved you. Like, it's always like, oh, she's here.
Same. I was so excited. It's nice to see you.
The J Love. Do you remember when everyone called you that?
Yes. Do you know that they called me J-Lo in a magazine before Jennifer Lopez?
Really? I know. And then
Boom.
And then you became J Love, and she
then I was
J Lo.
Yeah.
And now you're just the Christmas.
That's me. I'm the Holiday Junkie.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.